For decades, America told the world a simple story. Innovation should be free. Markets should be open. Big ideas should grow without limits. And from that philosophy, something extraordinary was born. Google, Amazon, Meta, Apple. Companies so powerful, they didn't just dominate markets. They shaped how humans think, buy, communicate, and remember. But today, something feels different. The same country that created these giants is now trying to contain them. Antitrust lawsuits, congressional hearings, billion-dollar fines. America is breaking its own tech giants, not because they failed, but because they succeeded too well. Silicon Valley was never supposed to produce empires. It was supposed to produce ideas. In the early days, tech companies weren't seen as threats. They were tools to make life easier, information faster, markets more efficient. Google organized the world's information. Amazon optimized commerce. Facebook connected humanity. And America let them grow. Because growth was proof of success, and success was proof the system worked. Regulation stayed away. Governments watched from a distance. The logic was simple. If innovation is slowed, the future is delayed, so the giants grew. They bought competitors, absorbed startups, expanded into adjacent industries. Slowly, invisibly, power concentrated, not through force, but through convenience. There is a moment every system fears, the moment when size turns into influence. Google doesn't just answer questions, it decides which answers matter. Amazon doesn't just sell products, it decides who survives in commerce. Meta doesn't just host conversations, it shapes public opinion. These companies didn't replace governments, they bypassed them. Their platforms became infrastructure, invisible, essential, untouchable. And that's when the fear began. Because governments don't fear wealth, they fear control over behavior. History has a pattern. Whenever a private entity accumulates power comparable to the state reacts. Railroads, oil barons, banks. America has done this before. Standard Oil was broken not because it failed consumers, but because it became unavoidable. The tech giants followed the same path. Except this time, the product wasn't oil or steel, it was attention, data, reality itself. When companies control information flows, democracy feels fragile, and fragile systems panic. Officially, America's war on big tech is about competition, monopolies, consumer protection, fair markets. But that's not the real battle. The real concern is sovereignty. Who governs digital space? Who sets the rules of speech? Who controls data, the oil of the 21st century? Governments can't allow private platforms to become parallel states, so regulation returns. Slowly, legally, relentlessly. America doesn't break companies violently. It breaks them procedurally. Why didn't this happen earlier? Because power was fragmented, until it wasn't. Once big tech became global, their influence crossed borders. They negotiated with governments, defied regulations, moved faster than laws, and suddenly America realized something uncomfortable. These companies no longer needed the state, and worse, other states could use them. China, Russia, foreign influence operations. Tech giants became geopolitical liabilities, and America doesn't tolerate strategic risk. China handles this problem differently. Foreign companies are controlled early. Data is localized. Power is centralized. America waited. But the fear is the same. No government, authoritarian or democratic, allows an independent center of power to grow unchecked. China breaks companies openly. America breaks them legally. Different styles, same instinct. Now comes the paradox. Innovation needs freedom, but freedom creates giants. Giants threaten states. States restrict freedom. This cycle never ends. The question is not whether tech companies will be controlled. They will. The question is how much innovation survives the control. Too much regulation and progress slows. Too little and power concentrates dangerously. America is searching for balance, and it may not find it in time. This isn't a story about Google or Amazon or Meta. It's a story about power. Every system eventually faces the same dilemma. What happens when what you create becomes stronger than what controls you? America is not breaking its tech giants out of anger. It's doing it out of fear. Because the greatest threat to the state is not a foreign enemy. It's losing control of the future. And that battle has already begun. The question is no longer who builds the best technology. The question is who is allowed to control it. Not with explosions, not with speeches, but with laws written in quiet rooms, far from the spotlight. For decades, power in America followed a familiar shape. It lived in Washington. It moved through institutions. It answered, at least in theory, to voters. Then something changed. Power stopped wearing uniforms. It stopped sitting in government buildings. It moved into data centers, into code, into platforms used by billions. No borders, no elections, no flags. Just influence, constant, invisible, and global. At first, the state didn't resist. It benefited. Tech giants accelerated growth, created jobs, projected American dominance into every corner of the world. They weren't just companies. They were extensions of national strength. But power that grows without friction eventually stops asking for permission. Platforms began shaping public discourse. Algorithms decided what people saw, believed, and shared. Markets reacted faster than regulators could respond. And governments realized something unsettling. They were no longer the fastest actors in the system. By the time lawmakers understood the consequences, the infrastructure was already built. Lives were already dependent. Economies were already entangled. Breaking up tech giants suddenly wasn't about competition. It was about control. Control over information, control over labor, control over the future architecture of society. Because whoever controls digital infrastructure controls how reality is experienced. This is why antitrust returned from the past. Why regulators dusted off laws written for railroads and oil. Why phrases like national security began appearing in discussions about social media and cloud servers. Fear wasn't abstract anymore, it was measurable. What happens when a private company can disrupt elections faster than a foreign adversary? What happens when supply chains depend on a single platform? When communication relies on a few servers? When innovation concentrates instead of spreads? The state faced a dilemma with no clean solution. Too much control risks stagnation. Too little control risks irrelevance. And the clock was ticking. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was watching. China chose containment. Europe chose regulation. America hesitated, caught between ideology and necessity. Because limiting tech power means admitting something difficult, that the system produced outcomes it can no longer fully manage. This isn't a fight against innovation. It's a fight over who gets to decide its direction. The future won't be shaped by who builds the best technology, but by who governs it. And governance in the digital age is no longer guaranteed by sovereignty alone. It must be reclaimed. The question now isn't whether tech giants are too powerful. That question has already been answered. The real question is whether democratic systems can adapt fast enough to regain control over what they unleashed. Because once power escapes its original structure, it rarely returns quietly. And the decisions being made right now, in courts, in regulations, in silence, will determine whether the future belongs to institutions or to the systems that outgrew them.